So for factor by grouping, we look at the left pair, we see what they have in common, we see what the right pair have in common. So for this left pair in red, the GCF is x squared, so we're left with x minus 7. I like to call copy and paste, so I copy and paste the x minus 7 over here, and then I work backwards and figure out what must go in front of the right parenthesis. So I say, what times x gets me 4x? What times negative 7 gets me negative 28? Well, it's got to be a positive 4. So the terms in front, x squared and 4, go in one set of parentheses. The value repeated goes in the other. So our factors are x squared plus 4 times x minus 7. Again, you can't factor x squared plus 4 because there's no formula for sum of squares. Last thing that we'll do by grouping is number 19. So again, look at our left pair. They have x in common that we can factor out. We're left with 4x squared minus 9. We'll copy that and paste it over here and work backwards to figure out what goes in front. So I say to myself, what times 4x squared is 8x squared? Well, it's got to be a positive 2. You always need a number here, even if it's a plus or minus 1. So then terms in front go in one set of parentheses. The values repeated, 4x squared minus 9, go in the other set of parentheses. And then I kind of already did two steps at once. You'll see I took the square root because I was just thinking to myself, could I factor and could I go further? And yes, I could, because 4x squared minus 9, I see the squared, I see the minus, so I'm thinking difference of squares. The square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 4 is 2, and we get an x. Fits the mold, that's why we got 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 3. This original factor falls down. So this is our final answer. Okay, so for this section, really just focus on, what's the step after factoring. There's really two new parts in the section. You need to get all terms on one side if they're not. So for 21, they're all on one side. For 22, we had to move the negative 27 over first. 23, we had to move the x over first. Remember, when you move to the other side, you have to add or subtract. Then, once all terms are on one side, you need to decide, am I going to factor using the AC method? For the number 22, we'd use cubes, the difference of cubes formula. For, number 25, we would do grouping because there's 4 parts, 4 terms. So you have to figure out what grouping method is the easiest and fastest. Once you fully factor, for example, in 25, once we get all of our factors, the factors are in parentheses, to solve, to get the x values, you set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So our answers are x equals negative a half, 1/2, and negative 2. If you fully factor, and let's say you get down to a problem like 28, you set what's inside the parentheses, 4x plus 3 equal to 0, and solve. So you get negative 3/4. And then when you have a quadratic that doesn't factor further, you can use the quadratic formula to solve.